We want to bring in now Newsmax contributor Fred Fleitz. He's the vice chair of America's First Policy Institute Center for American Security. Fred, it's great to have you with us today. So many things are happening at this hour.
Good to be here.
Okay, so we're seeing it looks like an attack is imminent according to our government, but then there was a bit of a confusing message coming from President Zelensky saying that chaos is not our friend here over the weekend. What are your thoughts on where we could see the Russians move when we're looking at the situation as it remains at this hour?
Sure. I first want to say it's really impressive Newsmax has a reporter on the Ukraine-Russia border. I hope Sarah stays safe. Look, the Ukrainians are in a terrible situation. Obviously, the Ukrainian president wants to play this down to try to promote calm, to try to look for negotiations. But I think one of the most damning developments over the weekend was when the Ukrainian President Zelensky asked for a meeting with Russia under the Vienna Convention. This is something that is part of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and it allows two states to meet to discuss military matters, security matters on an emergency basis within 48 hours. The Russians won't respond. I think that is very, very devastating. Zelensky is now asking for a meeting of all 56 members of the OSCE. It worries me that that meeting, if it ever takes place, will probably not occur before an invasion.
Fred, good to see you. Ukrainian President Zelensky has invited Biden to come over after what some people are calling like a public rebuke of the White House's tone on this matter. You have Zelensky urging calm. He said that the biggest enemy was panic. But even as this morning, he's saying, yes, I want to join NATO, which Putin opposes. Jake Sullivan and the president say there will be swift and decisive action if there is any military action. You've sat in that Security Council. What does that look like when you hear swift action and decisive action? What do you think that looks like?
Well, if this was President Trump, I think the Russians would be afraid. The Russians aren't afraid of Joe Biden at all, and it looks like the Biden administration is already talking about how swift banking sanctions would not be imposed if there was an invasion of Ukraine. I'm afraid the Russians, they mocked British and French attempts to meet with Russian officials last week. It looks like Putin was polite with President Biden over the weekend, but it's pretty clear the way the Russians are acting. Time for dialogue is over. They're not interested in concessions. They're not afraid of sanctions. That Putin has decided to invade Ukraine, and I'm afraid he has decided on a large-scale invasion.
You're right. Even over the weekend, the Russian ambassador to Sweden is saying, using some strong language, Fred, saying Putin doesn't give a blank about sanctions. So do you think there was even a window where we could have used diplomacy and that it was this administration who completely has, again, not handled this the way a Trump administration would have? Was there a window?
Well, we have to look at this. Americans are a can-do people. We want to solve things. But we have to recognize that this crisis is the result of a year of Biden appeasing the Russians. Remember, he lifted the sanctions on the pipeline in his first few weeks in office. There was the Afghanistan withdrawal debacle, and not just the weakest president in history, the worst foreign policy in history. So we have a year of weakness and indecision that led to this crisis. So when you say, was there a window? Sure there was. When Biden was inaugurated, he could have put together a credible foreign policy team, a credible foreign policy. He could have acted as a strong international leader, but he didn't. And now we're in this disaster. I think what we have to do now is to think about, if this happens, how can we stop the next crisis? Because I'm afraid if Putin invades, there will be many more.
Fred, let's talk about sort of the whole panoply of different options that Putin has to try to advance on Ukraine and maybe other countries. Talk to us a little bit about the hybrid warfare, sort of the fifth column attacks, Russia using cyber attacks and other types of threats to destabilize from within these countries all along his perimeter, maybe even here also in the U.S.
Well, the Russians have been engaged in electronic warfare and cyber warfare for some time. I think it has been accelerated against Ukraine to create confusion, to undermine the government, to maybe mislead the Ukrainians where an invasion might occur. Russia, they're a sophisticated adversary. They're using every weapon available. But I have to tell you, I don't think Putin has any intention of invading NATO countries and invading. I think Ukraine may be a special case. He may be interested in states of the former Soviet Union, not the Baltic states. I don't want to downplay this too much, but I don't think Putin is going to risk a war with NATO. Ukraine is not a NATO member. And I mean, that's not much of a saving grace, but I'm hoping that this will be it if Putin invades his country.
All right, Fred Fleitz, we appreciate your insight today. As always, a pleasure to have you here for this developing story. And of course, we'll continue to check in with you, Fred. Thank you.
Good to be here.